Okay, that's probably a good idea. Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Protecting victims of domestic violence is a cause that's taking a giant leap forward today. It's a good day for Illinois. It's also an emotional day as we remember those that we've lost and those who have suffered along the way to get us here. We are thinking of Karina Gonzalez and her beautiful daughter Daniela, who were taken from us at the hands of an abusive husband who had easy access to a Glock 17 even after an order of protection had been granted. I'm thinking of the hundreds of victims of domestic violence related deaths that have occurred in just the last few years alone. May their memories be a blessing. May their strength and courage inspire us to take further action. It's in their memory and in the name of Karina Gonzalez that I sign Karina's law today. This measure allows police across Illinois to confiscate guns and FOID cards from individuals who have a restraining order entered against them. Karina's law will protect survivors of domestic violence and give them comfort, the comfort of knowing that their abuser will not have easy access to firearms. There are those who opposed this law because they mistakenly believe that the Second Amendment has no limits. Well, they're wrong. And even the very conservative U.S. Supreme Court said so. I sometimes disagree with Supreme Court rulings, but one thing we do in this state is we follow the law and we follow the Constitution. I'd like to acknowledge the many individuals and organizations here with us today who have helped shape this legislation and drive it forward. They have worked so hard to get us here. Amanda Pyron and Marilia Negron of the Network Advocating Against Domestic Violence. Kathleen Sances from the Gun Violence Prevention PAC. Sam Tuttle of Legal Action Chicago. Our partners in law enforcement, Director Brendan Kelly of the Illinois State Police and Cook County Sheriff Tom Dart, all of my colleagues that are here today and that voted for this in the General Assembly, led by Senate President Don Harmon, and the intrepid bill sponsors, Senator Selena Villanueva and Representative Maura Hirschauer. I'll just say about the General Assembly that we aren't able to make any progress unless we work together, and the General Assembly has worked hard to make sure that this bill made it to my desk, and in just a few moments I'll be signing it into law. To Karina's son, Manny, you have been through so much, and I know that there are no words comforting enough to ease that sorrow, but what you have done to stand up for survivors and use your voice to prevent this from happening again is nothing short of remarkable. Your bravery, your selflessness in the face of tragedy will save lives. And I know that your mother is proud. And I know that all of Illinois is grateful for what you have done. I've spoken with domestic violence survivors, advocates, and law enforcement officers about the impact and the efficacy of this legislation, all of whom agreed this is a step in the right direction. Taking lethal weapons from those who have already done harm and are an immediate and present danger to do further harm is simply common sense. All agreed, as I do, that there is still more work to do to prevent gun violence. To properly enforce such a law and protect survivors, it is imperative that we adequately fund and support our police officers. That's why every year I have been in office, I have increased funding for police. Confiscating weapons from dangerous individuals is too important a task to carry out without the proper resources. We must also continue to take action to support our survivors. Ensuring their immediate safety is our first priority, but our responsibility to protect them does not end there. Over the past 6 years, I've worked to support the many programs and organizations that provide a critical lifeline to these families. Shelter, counseling, legal services, job training programs, all the assistance that they need to build a path to self-sufficiency and a better life. There's more to do, but we have made real progress. We owe it to Karina and Daniela, to Manny, to all the victims and their families to continue building all the support and protection that we can. With that, I'm very pleased to hand the podium over to a leader and partner in fighting against domestic violence and fighting for gun safety, Senate President Don Harmon.
Thank you, Governor, and good morning, all. Good morning. It's an honor to be here on this momentous occasion. The road to get here was long, but the results will save lives. I want to thank my Senate Democratic colleagues, Senator Robert Peters, Senator Adrian Johnson, and especially Senator Celina Villanueva for her tenacity and dedication throughout this process. And I also want to thank the network of advocates that brought together domestic violence organizations and gun safety organizations and law enforcement to push to close the loopholes and to make our state safer. Hanging over much of this debate was a Supreme Court case that would decide what, if anything, we could do. I was relieved when the court gave us far more elbow room than I would have expected to tackle this issue. And now we have, and we've done it in a manner that is effective and constitutional. I especially want to thank Karina's family for seeing this through and taking the extraordinary step of turning your grief into action. Karina's law is more than just words on a piece of paper. Because of the time and effort put in by everyone involved in making this law a reality, it is a comprehensive, effective plan to protect victims of domestic violence. It will prevent violence and it will save lives. So thanks again for inviting me to speak. And now I want to introduce the lead sponsor and the driving force behind this law, Senator Celina Villanueva.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
There's a lot to say and a lot of complex emotions today. I'm very honored to be here today to finally get this bill signed into law. But the complexities of feeling of why we're even needing to do it in the first place. As legislators, we do this work understanding that there are going to be pieces of the law that most people don't really understand because of its complexities. And it might be like a tweak of a word or two, or a sentence that might be changed, or a term that might be used that's outdated. And for most part, the bills that we pass, it goes like that. We're just making government function. And then there are bills and issues that keep you up at night. I still remember the 4th of July weekend in which Karina and Daniela were killed. Because I remember hearing the news and knowing how close to home it was for me. Because it was. It was 3 blocks, unfortunately, the situation away from my district office, but about a mile away from my own house. I am a Little Village resident. They were neighbors. They were community members. And in the subsequent time of, this bill being worked through, there was a previous Senate sponsor, which I give a lot of kudos to, former Senator Cristina Pacioni-Zayas, who had initially brought forward the bill along with the advocates. The advocates came to me and were like, we couldn't think of a better person to help carry this with us. And I say with us because it was a labor of love, of passion, of determination between an incredible group of people coming together, of advocates, of Manny, Karina, and Daniela's family, of Monica, of standing up in the worst moment of their lives and saying that we're going to fight back. There's a lot of moments where as legislators, we also feel helpless. We don't admit it very often, but we do. We're in positions of power, but we don't always have the ability to change everything that we see fit and everything that we want to do, especially with everything going on in this world. But as an organizer, I know that I can't change things by myself, that it takes a collective group of people in order to do so. And so I want to thank the advocates. I want to thank Sam, Maralia, the network. I want to thank so many people. My colleagues, Representative Maura Hirschauer, who literally, we got here, and I'm proud of us for getting here. The Senate President for allowing me and continuously giving me support, and also having Ashley Jenkins Jordan, our Chief of Staff, help take lead on it. This is also her win. The governor, I'm so very proud to be from the state of Illinois, and Lieutenant Governor, I'm so proud to be from Illinois, where we understand the impact that laws have on our communities, on our people. And I want to thank Manny and Karina and Daliana's family for giving us the trust to be able to stand by you with integrity, to be able to pass something and honor their names. Karina and Daniela's life already meant something. Their lives were already worth it. But now they're cemented in the history books. It doesn't make them any less important. They were always important. But now we're going to help others and hopefully prevent what happened to them to happening to other people. In the end, the reality is this. There are abusers that have access to guns and are not turning them in because they're using it in order to harass, to hurt, and to harm the people that they claim to love. And that's not okay. And in the state of Illinois, we are giving victims and survivors recourse to be able to do something about it. It was a simple tweak of the law, but it was very complex because it had to do with logistics, it had to do with coordination, and it was much more in depth. So while it was a regular law that most people would have paid attention to, it is who is at stake, the impact that has the potential to change the lives and the trajectory of lives in the state of Illinois. Now, I grappled with this all weekend. First, because I was like, I'm gonna try not to cry because I'm a crier. But second of all, because this was personal. In the past year, I have gotten to know Manny very well. He's worked in my office because I wanted, and it was really funny because after a press conference that we had to try to, again, continue to push on this bill, I got to meet with him and just interact with him a little bit and said, you know what? If you ever just need to talk to somebody or you just want to stop by the office, we have snacks. You can come out and chill. Like, you know, we're good. My district director, Christine, was also there and reiterated the same thing. And he took me up on that offer. And I remember talking with him, and I think it ended up being 3 hours that we talked in my office. And I knew this was someone that I needed to be there for. I knew that before when we were working on the bill. But being from Little Village, if you're from Little Village, you know that in the worst moments that we have experienced, the best thing that's come out of it has been the unification of community, has been people coming together to show love and appreciation. We've seen this happening with gun violence victims. We've seen this happening with gang violence victims in Little Village. And it happens throughout the city of Chicago and it happens throughout the state of Illinois. But in this moment, I knew, having lost my own mother so many years ago, what it felt like to not have that person in your life that helps guide you. And I hope that in the afterlife, our mothers had a conversation and somehow made this happen. And I'm glad to be able to now form part of a community that surrounds Manny, that surrounds Karina's family, Monica, all of you guys. To be able to be there in those rough moments, but also in the good moments like today. So I want to thank everybody involved for being able to make this happen, but also for getting us here, because today is a momentous day. Thank you. And with that, I'd like to bring up my partner in this fight, Representative Maura Hirschauer.
Good morning. I'm State Representative Maura Hirschauer. I represent the 49th District, which includes the communities of Batavia, West Chicago, and Bartlett, around others. I've passed a little over 20 bills since joining the House in 2021, but this is my first official bill signing with the governor, and I honestly cannot imagine a more impactful and important bill to mark this occasion. This bill will save lives. And since we passed this bill in early January, I have been approached by survivors of domestic violence in my community, at my grocery store, and women who have looked me in the eyes and thanked me, and then tentatively asked for a hug. And when we embrace, they whisper in my ear, "I am a survivor. I almost lost my life due to firearm violence. I cannot thank you enough." If you know me, you know I am a crier, so these hugs usually end with tears, but they are tears of strength, of solidarity, and extreme perseverance. The passage of this very bill was a lesson in persistence. Advocates like Amanda and Maralia from the network, Sam from Legal Action Chicago, and countless gun prevention advocates from groups like One AIM and Moms Demand Action kept pushing us, all of us behind here, to get this bill passed. We held extended negotiations with law enforcement and state's attorneys who provided valuable context for the process of granting and serving search warrants. Our goal is and always will be to keep survivors, their families, and the brave law enforcement officers who serve these orders safe from harm. Most importantly, this policy sends a clear message to those living through trauma and the terror of domestic violence. Here in Illinois, we see you. You have the absolute right to leave your abuser, and we will do our best to keep you and your family safe. And most importantly, here in Illinois, we value your life and the life of your families more than we value your abuser's gun. As we worked towards the passage of this bill, we have suffered imaginable tragedy. We have lost loved ones like Karina Gonzalez and her daughter Daniela. We have lost Maria Roque, Maria Lazaro Castillo, Adriana Lopez, China Mitchell, and countless others. Today, we honor all these beautiful lives as the governor signs this bill into law. And we also honor the lives of the loved ones who were left behind, like Karina's son and Daniela's brother Manny, who is here with us today, and Karina's cousin Monica. Like Senator Villanueva, I feel so grateful and honored to have met your family and worked with your family. You have bravely, every single one of you, picked up the pieces of your shattered lives and tirelessly advocated for this change. You turned your pain into purpose, and millions of Illinoisans will be safer because of what you are doing today. I am beyond proud to have led the passage of Karina's bill in the House. And though my name is first on the sponsor list, there are countless other colleagues whose hard work and input aided in this process, and some of them are standing behind me today. Leader Gonzalez represents Karina, Daniela, and Manny, and I'm so grateful that he is here today. Many of my colleagues standing behind me have personally been impacted by the intersection of domestic violence and gun violence. It knows no bounds. I want to thank Speaker Welch and Senate President Harmon for helping us persist through this process, and to Senator Villanueva for lending her tenacity and her strong voice for the fight, and I hope to learn a little bit from you. Thank you to our Attorney General, Kwame Raoul, who came onto the House floor when we passed this bill, for his commitment to keeping guns out of the hands of dangerous abusers. and to Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton and Governor Pritzker for your tireless commitment to keeping Illinoisans safe. Governor, I cannot wait for you to sign Karina's bill, which will forever hereafter be known as Karina's Law. Thank you so much, and I would like to introduce Amanda Pyron from the network.
Thank you, Representative. My name is Amanda Pyron, and I'm the President and CEO of the Network Advocating Against Domestic Violence. The Network is a group of over 40 member organizations working to end gender-based violence through education, advocacy, and organizing. We're also very proud to operate the Illinois Domestic Violence Hotline, a statewide resource for survivors in crisis, and we offer safety planning and support. I'm honored to be here on behalf of the network as Governor Pritzker turns Karina's bill into Karina's Law, something that can't be mentioned too much today. This is a monumental step forward in the fight to protect domestic violence survivors from firearms. We know from our members and the survivors that we work with every day that this law is urgently needed. The Illinois Domestic Violence Hotline received more than 1,000 calls last year from survivors impacted by domestic violence and firearms. In fact, there has been a 63% increase in firearm-involved domestic violence deaths between 2019 and 2023 in the state of Illinois. When firearms and domestic violence mix, the result is often fatal. An emergency order of protection is often the first step out of a violent relationship. It can also be the most dangerous step. This is the time that a survivor faces the most risk because it's also the time that the abusive partner realizes he's losing control. Ultimately, to request an order of protection, like Karina did, is an act of bravery. It's also an act of trust. Trust in the promise that our systems make that when survivors ask for help, we will protect them. Karina's Law will help us make good on that promise. I want to thank Governor Pritzker for his work to make this bill a reality, as well as our sponsors who, as you've seen today, could not be more tenacious, more supportive, and more thoughtful, Representative Mara Hirschauer and Senator Selena Villanueva. I also want to thank Senate President Herman for working so hard with his team to make sure that this bill was passed. And of course, we wouldn't be here without the tenacious and steadfast vision that Manny and Monica Alvarez had for this bill, for their mother and cousin's legacy to protect survivors throughout the state. And I wouldn't be here without my team, Marlia Negron, Sam Tuttle. I could not thank you enough. You guys are legends. The passage and signing of Karina's Law makes clear that our lawmakers in Illinois, from the local level to the state legislature to the governor, are taking action to ensure our state is a leader in the fight against domestic violence. This law is a clear signal to survivors that they are believed, heard, and trusted in addressing their needs as they escape the cycle of abuse. While our work is not over, I hope this moment sends a clear signal to everyone that Illinois is a state that stands with survivors. It's now my pleasure to introduce my colleague, the CEO and President of Illinois GPAC, Kathleen Sanchez.
Good morning. Good morning. I am honored to be here today. As the state's leading gun violence prevention organization, we have worked hard alongside the network and the Illinois Gun Violence Prevention Coalition as they led the charge to pass Karina's bill. It's important to point out that the network led this fight, and we consider ourselves just the helpers, and we were just honored to work alongside you. I'd also like to recognize our national partners, Moms Demand Action, Giffords, and Brady United. We are grateful to them and to our Illinois leaders, Governor Pritzker, Senate President Harmon, House Speaker Welch, Senator Villanueva, Representative Hirschauer, and the many other members who supported this effort. We are especially grateful for the dedication of the family of Karina and Daniela Gonzalez, We are inspired by you. In the midst of immense pain and loss, you have worked tirelessly, committed to honoring the memory of Karina and Daniela. We do this work for you. We do this work because of you. Thank you for your courage. Because of this group's collective efforts, more women, children, and Illinois families will be protected from gun violence. When GPAC was founded 12 years ago, our mission was to mobilize advocates, survivors, and the public to support gun safety champions in office and work together to finally pass long overdue gun reform in Springfield. Legislation used to spend years languishing in committee. Now, we have arrived at a moment in Illinois when common sense gun safety laws are prevailing. With Karina's law, Governor Pritzker and state lawmakers are leading once again and putting Illinois at the forefront of protecting our children, families, and communities in Illinois. At a time of chaos, rhetoric, and division in Washington, our leadership is doing something different. They are making progress. They are working together. They see a problem, and they are enacting real change to help protect more Illinois communities from gun violence. Illinois leaders are doing more than sending their thoughts and prayers. They are taking action and making Illinois a safer place. And for that, we are all grateful. Thank you. And now you will hear from Manny Alvarez.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Jesus Emmanuel Alvarez, but you may know me as Manny. I'm the surviving victim of a shooting that tragically took the lives of my mother and sister at the hands of my father during the 4th of July weekend in 2023. I would first like to acknowledge a couple people who made this bill possible. Representative Mauro Hirschauer, who was actually working on this bill before the death of my mother, Karina Gonzalez, after whom this bill is proudly named after. Senator Selena Villanueva, on February 13th of last year, you took a chance at allowing me to intern at your district office. You picked me up during the darkest times of my life. I felt alone, I felt guilty, and I felt lost. Today, I have the honor of being here alongside you and the honor of being hired to work now to fight street violence in my childhood neighborhood of Little Village. I know that both our mothers are looking down on us and celebrating our victories today. And your support on the Senate side was amazing to see. And I strive to be like you one day. I would also like to thank Governor Pritzker and his team for allowing me the opportunity to speak today, along with a special thank you to the advocates who worked tirelessly to ensure that this bill made its way through Springfield. People like the network, One Aim, GPAC, working in the background to make sure that this was something that got passed. And as I look forward towards the future, I hope that the future survivors won't have to suffer as much as our family and countless others have had to at the hands of abusers. And while there is still much work to be done, the future is brighter than ever. Thank you to everyone who supported me through this journey. This is in honor of my mother, Karina Gonzalez, it's my sister, Daniela Alvarez, and my family, who have had to go through some of the worst pain ever imaginable. But I think what makes us different is that we turn that pain into action, and we hope that this isn't something that someone else has to go through. It is now my honor to introduce Lieutenant Governor Stratton, and thank you.
Hello, everyone. Manny, thank you is not enough to convey our appreciation for your powerful words, advocacy, and service to the broader Illinois community. In the midst of your physical and emotional recovery, you, Monica, and your family found a well of strength to use for change. And I have no doubt that your mom and your sister are in awe of you today and always. So many Illinoisans from every walk of life have been personally impacted by gun violence, including me. And while I cannot lift the pain that you carry with you every day, I can tell you that you have honored your family's memory in the most profound way. Today's bill signing is a crucial declaration. The future of Illinois can and will be informed by the lived expertise of our people. The vision this administration carries for our state is one of peace, empathy, and of meaningful change. In every policy written, our aim is to reflect the needs and values of the real people who call Illinois home. Karina's bill is a victory in our fight to provide additional protection for survivors of domestic violence, an issue that disproportionately impacts women and women of color. When a victim is able to secure an emergency order of protection, their next immediate thought should be one of relief, that their bravery resulted in an action that should provide safety. But for too many, their next immediate thought is one of fear when they know their abuser still has ready access to a firearm. The bill Governor Pritzker signs into law today means that survivors can start their journey toward recovery faster instead of facing a new kind of threat, and that is a win for us all. At the root of this legislative success, though, is a story of tragic heartbreak that no signature or law can truly rectify. Karina Gonzalez and her 15-year-old daughter, Daniela, had dreams and aspirations beyond the violence in their home. They had friends, plans for the upcoming weekend, and to-do lists of chores and homework, just like all of us in this room. They were so much more than their circumstance, and yet, because of a gap in protection, they aren't here to see this moment. In the wake of their loss, a crowd of voices came together and used their grief to propel essential progress. To every advocate and survivor who bared their hearts to inspire this change, thank you. To our partners in the General Assembly, President Harmon, and especially our chief sponsors, Senator Villanueva and Representative Hirschauer, thank you for coming together to deliver for our people. To the law enforcement officers on the front lines, thank you for your dedication to our community. You will not be alone in this process. We have your backs too. As I close, let me point out that as we recognize this step forward in Illinois today, the country is taking many, many steps back. Over the last few days, the White House has begun the process of rolling back common sense gun safety policies, policies that so many survivors and advocates fought for years to enact. And Donald Trump did this knowing that it would put more lives at risk. The Trump administration has made their disdain for the victims and survivors of gun violence clear. Our administration is making our dedication to Illinois' victims and survivors unmistakable. Every Illinoisan, every American deserves to be safe. And today, we reaffirm that we stand with survivors and advocates who will continue this work, and we will keep doing everything in our power to protect the people of Illinois, because we are not going back, not on our watch. Thank you, and with that, I'm going to invite Governor Pritzker to come forward and sign Karina's bill into Karina's law.
And the two sponsors and Manny, you guys should, here, let's take this back. Happy to take any questions from members of the media. I see Jeremy, and then I'm not sure your name. Lee, I'll call on you right after Jeremy, I promise. Maura, you want to take this, or your Senator? Either one, both of you.
So, in Cook County, we've actually gotten a lot of support from Tom Dart, and their office is ready to go to be able to do it. I think the coordination was obviously for more rural areas, and so there's been a lot of conversations that, again, we'll be continuing as we kind of like lead to implementation of the bill. But like I said, certain areas are a lot more well-equipped at the moment, and it's one of the reasons why we'll continue to be having conversations with folks. Sam, Maralia, the advocates are actually working on making sure all of this happens.
Yeah, thank you so much. Marilia Negron. We did include a provision in the final language that allows for third-party transfer petition process, so that once the firearms are relinquished to law enforcement in that immediate kind of urgent time frame, there's a process for those firearms to not stay with law enforcement, but to go to someone else who the judge has decided is okay to have possession of those firearms.
Because that was a problem, I think, with the previous iteration, just when it comes to domestic violence, where somebody's found to have an order of protection against them, they have firearms, and then with the guns, instead of going to law enforcement, go to someone else who has a FOIA card via So this is meant to resolve that.
Correct. This allows for a judge to make a determination that it is in fact safe for a third party to take possession, but immediately those firearms are removed from that situation, that household, and then there is a petition process. Yep.
I actually had a question about that process. Could you just describe how that's going to happen?
Yeah.
So we're in court, this order is issued, what happens next to get past those processes?
Yeah, so immediately the firearms are in law enforcement possession. So they've either been relinquished to law enforcement or there has been a search warrant issued where law enforcement have gone and retrieved those firearms. Then at subsequent hearings, the respondent to the order of protection can start to that process, the petition process, to ask that their firearms be given to a third party. A judge then has to make a determination that that third party does not reside in the home with the respondent, that they, this respondent, the third party petitioner is going to be responsible for the firearms. They understand the legalities of that, what that means to be responsible and have possession of those firearms, and then that transfer can happen accordingly with law enforcement and the petitioner, the third party petitioner.
So the individual, I guess in this case, either brings those weapons to court
At the initial stage, correct. And then there is a third party petition process that addresses the question of the prior speaker who asked kind of what did we include in the final legislation to address the storage concerns, and we addressed it by allowing a third party petition process.
and would it be the county who would execute that search warrant?
It really just depends on jurisdiction. We did allow for flexibility for a judge to determine if it's best for local law enforcement, so municipal level, county level, or if there are situations where it's multi-jurisdictional.
Yeah. Shia.
President Trump says he's going to impose steel tariffs across the
And aluminum.
aluminum. What does that mean for Illinois, or what could it mean?
So if you didn't hear, the question was about the 25% tariffs that the president has now imposed on steel and aluminum. Just last week, I was visiting a brewery of a startup craft brewer who was telling me that if the aluminum tariff that had been threatened by President Trump was put on, that the cost for him of providing beer in a can would go up substantially and may make it so that they would have to go out of business. It's already expensive. We've got barley that comes across the border from Canada that would be subject to the Canadian tariffs that Donald Trump wants to put on, and add on to it aluminum tariffs, and you're going to put people out of business. These are enormous tariffs, 25%. And it seems to me that this is a tax on working families. This is what Trump is all about. I want to remind you why he's doing this. It is not because he is looking for trade fairness. It appears likely that this is about paying for the tax cut that he intends to provide to the wealthiest Americans. So the effect on all of us and on the entire country is, and particularly working families, is everything's going to cost more. And it's a tax on everybody, again, to pay for what he's going to introduce shortly, which is a tax cut for wealthy people. Yeah.
Could I ask you, reacting to your video on Friday, which was rather long. However, of course, there is pushback from the Republican Party.
Pushback.
Maybe I should read it.
It was a humorous video. Go ahead.
Well, Pritzker focused-
You're going to give them time. Okay.
This is their statement. They say that you are focusing on yourself and your political.
So,
What's that way of saying?
did anyone see the video? It was intended to inject. It was intended to inject some humor at a moment when I think people don't find much that's going on humorous. So, I was just, talking about something that I thought people would get a little chuckle about over the weekend.
And does that also, you do seem to be one of the most outspoken voters, Democratic voters. Why is that the case? Where are the others?
Well, I think there are a variety of reasons that people haven't spoken out fully. I think part of it is that the American public hasn't yet seen that that tomato prices are going up because of the potential for Mexican tariffs on Mexico, products from Mexico. Again, I talked about the beer brewer who is going to have to raise the price of their beer because of the tariffs that the president is putting on. These are all things that are either here or they're coming shortly. And I can see them coming, and I know what the impact will be. People have been promised something by this Trump administration that he is not delivering. They've been promised lower prices. They've been promised lower grocery prices. They've been promised lower gas prices. They've been promised more affordability. And that is precisely the opposite of what's happening. Look at egg prices. And if you want to blame that on the avian flu, fine, but look, he's tearing apart the departments of government that protect us from the avian flu. So prices are going up under this president. The Trump tax on working families is going into effect, and I think you will see real activism at the grassroots level in response to that. So I would like it if more people were speaking out, more elected officials. I will give credit to a couple of senators, Senator Schatz from Hawaii, Senator Kim, the new senator from New Jersey, both of whom have been very outspoken, and a few others. And I think we're going to see more and more of that. And it shouldn't just be elected officials, though. I think it's going to be protests at the street level. Yeah, Chris.
Governor, it's been 3 weeks since the Trump administration has come back into power.
Only 3 weeks.
A new CBS News poll out yesterday shows that 53% of Americans are supportive of this president at this moment in time. How do you square your, scorched earth sort of approach to how he's governing with the reality that the majority of Americans, at least according to this one poll, think he's doing a good job?
Well, the majority of Illinoisans don't support President Trump and don't support these policies. In addition, I have expressed my personal views about some of the things that he's doing, and importantly, I've expressed what I think is the danger that our residents in our state face as a result of the policies that he's putting in place. So you can look at one poll and say, oh, gee, he's popular in some places in the country. Frankly, I look at what's happening to working class families as a result of his policies, and I'm speaking out about that. Yes, Craig.
What do Democrats need to do more of or better to get that kind of message across? Because, it's not like that poll was just out of anywhere.
Actually, it's the only one that has him at 53%, but go ahead.
But still,
Mhm.
it seems as if Democrats are not able to get their message out as powerfully as maybe you've been able to do here.
Well, let's be clear, the President of the United States has the biggest bully pulpit of all. And there's no doubt that he's been attempting to flood the zone with a lot of nonsense, which has distracted the media and it's distracted the American public. But I'm laser focused, and I think people, when they go to the grocery store, are laser focused on the costs that this is bringing to American families. And that is what we should be talking about. We should also be talking about the rights that are being taken away from people slowly but surely, and the attack that this president has made on the judiciary. He's in 3 weeks, he's been in office in 3 weeks, he's lost, I think, at least 5 big cases. And that should tell you something about the constitutionality, the unconstitutionality, and unlawfulness that he and President Musk are carrying out. Honestly, I think that we're, as Democrats, we have always been the party that stands up for working class Americans. We have always been the party that stands up for the most vulnerable. And that is precisely who he is hurting every day. You take away funding for programs that fight poverty. You take away funding for Medicaid, Head Start, Meals on Wheels. These are things that affect people we know, people who are in need of a little bit of help. And these are programs that Democrats believe in. And so we're going to speak up loudly about that. Yeah. I'm sorry, what's your first name?
Blair.
Blair, nice to meet you.
The state is negotiating to build 2 new 1,500 single-cell prisons to rebuild Stateville and Logan. Stateville is open. It was just filmed about a quarter of that, and Illinois is seeing the lowest prison population in about decades. Why continue to build prisons?
Well, we've got to rebuild these prisons in part because some of them are more than 100 years old. And if you want rehabilitation, you're going to have facilities that promote rehabilitation. These do not. There are classes that we want to make sure that people are able to take while they're in prison so that when they get out of prison, they're prepared for a job. People can better themselves while they're in prison so that they'll be better when they're out of prison. We want to make sure that we're keeping our corrections officers safe in those prisons. And that's not the case when there are chunks of cement falling from the ceilings at Stateville. And also, we're looking hard at making sure that we have prisons in locations where the families of the prisoners are able to, reach. That's one issue. The other is, very importantly, we can't attract corrections officers in some parts of the state. It's very, very difficult. And so we're looking at a lot of investments that need to get made. Corrections isn't the only department that's been kind of left out and nobody's paid any attention to it for many years. And then to your point about how many cells should there be in a particular prison, which I think is part of your question, the answer is we don't know what the prison population will be going forward. But importantly, we're always looking at making sure that we've got the right amount of beds, but importantly, the right amount of staffing. We all learned, I think, during the COVID-19 pandemic that just because a building happens to have enough beds or rooms in it doesn't mean that it's staffed properly. So you can't really say that those beds are, if they're not staffed, they're not available. So we want to make sure that we're building these new prisons so that they meet the needs of the future. Again, a little unclear from now until then, or some future date 20 years from now, how many prisoners we'll need to make sure that we're housing. But we have a lot of prisons that are in need of investment, and the question we're all going to have to ask is whether or not we can improve those prisons or we're going to have to replace them. Thanks, everybody. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and be sure to watch more videos from Fox Illinois.